love you.
See if we can make it through this. But yeah, so let me just start from here. Caleb and I, Caleb died negligent homicide and medical malpractice in the U.S. Army. We don't have a lawsuit because we don't have the ability to go to court because of this Ferris doctrine. What we have is an administrative claim, and I'll get to that when we talk about the Steiskal Act. That'll probably be for another episode. But what we have is an administrative claim, and the military members don't have the ability to go to court and get justice.
Right.
They don't have the same rights as we do, as we the
Nope.
people do. They forfeit their rights. Yet the court theoretically is where you can obtain an opportunity for a fair decision to be made. And then that's what we're asking for, is just a fair, decision.
Right.
We want the investigations to be out of the hands of the Department of Defense. They shouldn't be allowed to investigate themselves and conduct themselves as the judge, jury, and adjudicator.
Exactly.
And they have to answer to a higher body because right now they don't have to correct anything because they know that there's no repercussion. So, even to allow us to be able to file claims or passing what I call like the Band-Aid acts to make us feel like maybe we're getting somewhere. And it's really just another layer of bamboozling. And it's a way for them to continue to get away with all kinds of injustices. But, honestly, it will only take one or two times of holding people accountable at a higher cost, like a judicial punishment, God forbid, as opposed to a non-judicial punishment, which usually just means that you're going to get moved around to a different base and maybe demoted or whatever. But you're still going to be able to have the opportunity to maybe gain rank, or there might be some stipulation that says you can't rank up or whatever, but eventually you get to retire with full benefits.
Exactly.
So I believe, if people are actually held to accountability and punished,
And really punished.
What's that?
Really punished, not
and
this.
Really punished. That's right. None of this mamby-pamby, moving you to a different base. We're talking about losing your job kind of punishment. We're talking about maybe when you get out, your first place you're headed is to to jail.
Yep.
Civilian jail, or whatever. But I don't know why we're not really holding people accountable these days. But I believe that if we do start holding people accountable, it will correct itself. Right now, they're running rampant,
Yep.
And they have created a culture that allows these acts to continue to be perpetuated. So, I was talking to my attorney, Daniel Maharaj, who's a federal attorney who's helping many of us families who have medical malpractice claims against the United States government. And he's just got an amazing legal brain. But I've been like picking his brain, like, tell me, like, help me understand this whole Ferris doctrine thing. And so one of the questions I asked him, so this is kind of, these are, what I'm going to share with you here is just kind of like my, what I got from speaking with Daniel. And so I asked him, what is the difference between the Ferris Doctrine and the Federal Torts Claim Act?
Good
You heard
question.
of these? Okay.
Mhm.
So a little history about the Federal Torts Claim Act is that the Federal Torts Claim Act is a federal law or statute that allows individuals to sue the federal government for a tort. Now, I did not know what a tort was, so I had to look it up. So it's a wrongful act or infringement of a right, or like personal injury or property damage. Okay, so the Federal Torts Claim Act is a federal law or statute that allows individuals to sue the federal government for a tort if the federal government commits a crime. If somebody in that, let's just say you're ran over by a U.S. post office truck or something like that, God forbid. And I don't know why I'm laughing. That's terrible. Sorry. But so this law was created in 1946 and allows for a private citizen to bring a claim against the government if the government personnel has committed a tort against you. So has committed like a wrongful act or infringement of your rights or property damage, personal injury, that sort of thing. Basically, you can't sue the government unless there's a law. Okay, so you have this thing called sovereign immunity. So you can't sue if you don't have the federal government because they have sovereign immunity unless you have a law that allows it. So because of the Federal Tort Claim Act, we do have a law that allows for us under certain circumstances to sue the Department of Defense. Any private citizen can sue and have a claim. Like I said, if you have a U.S. Post Office person, hit you in their van, you'd be able to file a Federal Tort Claim Act, a claim under the Federal Tort Claim. But as a service member, this is where it gets a little sticky and tricky and twisted. Because after you have this Federal Tort Claim Act that was created in 1946, we have the Rudolph Ferries case, and the Ferries family wins at the original court level, okay, under the Federal Tort Claim Act. The original court level says yes. Okay. Because as you can see, the Federal Tort Claim allows for, any citizen to bring a claim against the government. So Rudolph Ferries was involved in I believe he was in a barrack fire. And so his wife was able to file this claim under the Federal Tort Claim Act. And so they won under this original court level, saying that it was wrongful death. And so his wife wins that. And the government appeals it to the federal circuit court or the appellate level, and it's overturned. And then gets appealed to the Supreme Court level. And this is where it starts getting very interesting. Okay, this is how the Ferris Doctrine was created. The Ferris Doctrine is that the Supreme Court at the time creates what they term incidents of service. So after it's appealed to the Supreme Court says, okay, here's a term for you, incidents of service. So that anything related to incidents of service, when it comes to, this term just means military in general. They just say that military means incidents of service. So what we need is a breakdown and a broader understanding of what incidents of service is. You can't just say military related. That the Ferris Doctrine is basically going to be case law for this Federal Tort Claim Act. So basically, incidents of service, if it's military related, they're saying that the claim will not be considered or permitted under the Federal Tort Claim Act that is the fairest decision. So that the fairest decision that it's, am I making sense?
Well, I can follow it.
Okay. So basically, incidents of service, they're saying their definition, the Supreme Court's definition at this point is that it means military related. So if they're saying that this case, this Ferris case, was military related, and so because it's military related, they can't file a claim under the Federal Tort Claim Act. But there's more about that. So basically, that because Caleb died under incidents of service, we cannot bring a claim under the Federal Tort Claim Act. But there's a catch. The issue is that the term incidents of service has been expanded into so many different things and just means anything, like to be related with the military. And so because Caleb was active duty, that means that our case is automatically denied because he was in the military actively. And so here's the deal. Never has Congress gone back to clarify incidents of service and what it means. The language of the Federal Tort Claim Act has a section that's titled exceptions. And in the exceptions, there's one exception that covers claims that are associated with military service for wartime claims. So in thinking of this in broader sense, when Congress drafted this law, they thought of instances that they wouldn't want the government to be sued. And so it's a broad outline or of an array of exceptions that Congress outlines. But here's the deal. In exception J, it says that any claim that arises out of combat activities of the military forces during a time of war. So what that means is that what they're saying is that under the Federal Tort Claim Act, that it would allow for any of us to file a claim, because the only exception that they listed was that you can't file a claim that arises out of combat activities and military forces. So we just simply need to go back to the Federal Tort Claim Act, the original language. I mean, the Supreme Court really messed us up with this case law that they, gave us called the Ferris Doctrine. So you see that Congress obviously understood that when they drafted the Federal Tort Claim Act, they didn't want to allow people to sue the government for war.
Exactly.
Because our enlisted obviously know that they're signing up, with what the possibilities are, life and death, we don't think that any of our service members should be able to sue for their active duty deployment. That kind of incidents of service when you're defending or in a firefight, that sort of thing. In terms of going in a war zone, they know the risks that they're taking.
And so do their
families. What's that?
And so do their families.
Absolutely. We understand that. And that's not what this is about.
Correct.
This exception, however, does not cover non-wartime issues and also uses the term combatant activity. So you could argue that anything that is not a combatant activity should be allowed to bring a claim under the Federal Tort Claim Act. And that it's exactly what the Ferris estate did on his behalf when he died under the barracks in that fire, or in the barracks in that fire. His wife brought the claim saying that the way the fire happened was negligence and that they could have prevented the fire. Okay. But as a response to the Supreme Court's created a case law saying that Rudolph Ferris, his claim was incidents to service. So therefore not permitted. This because they're saying the incidents of service equals military, anything military. When in the original language of the Federal Tort Claim Act, it shows you right there was only one exception. And that's in time of war, like when they're, anyway. So in a response, they created this case law saying that the Rudolph Ferris claim was incidents of service, therefore not permitted. This is where we are today. Yeah. The language of the law does not coincide with the Ferris Doctrine. As it stands, the language of the law allows the military to bring claims, but however, the Supreme Court screwed it up and said no because incidents of service. It's not permitted, and that's why we need Congress to step back and say, hey, what is incidents to service? And we need them to define it for us and clarify the language, that was screwed up by the Supreme Court. We need them to amend the law to include additional definition of what incidents of service means, which in a sense would put restraints on the courts from saying that a service member can't bring a claim because incidents of service.
And Heather, what about the families? We're not in service.
Right. Exactly.
So why do we not have the ability to sue? I mean, in yours and my cases, they were in a combatant, in my opinion, our sons were in a combatant hostile environment. So
I see your point.
If you think about it, what do you think toxic abusive leadership is?
Oh yeah, I mean it's warfare, that's for sure.
And it's on our own soil.
Yeah, and think about what you do to a kid when a parent or a teacher or somebody, whoever it is, is talking down to a kid and yelling at them and making them feel insignificant and inferior. And I'm not saying that our service members need to be pampered and babied, but when it extends past, basic training, and it's just an avenue for whoever the abuser is to get out their anger. And everybody can tell, everybody can see it. And it's a consistent thing.
Exactly. They need to be, especially the lower ranked personnel, they need to be nurtured into that type of.
Absolutely. Who wants to follow a leader that's going to cut you down and tear you down? That's counter,
that's not mission ready.
No.
Because it doesn't work for them. In my opinion.
It's not beneficial. Think about what you're doing. And because the ultimate goal is to be ready for a wartime situation. And here you didn't been nothing but a jerk to everybody dealing with people in a cruel manner, and then you expect them to
Have your back.
have your back in a battle. And you're breeding this kind of behavior, and it's creating a culture.
Yep.
It's disgusting and scary.
It's unfair.
Uh-huh. You know, Congress could simply say something, you know, along the lines of incidents of service is not included, does not include non-combat activities such as negligence in the military facility or in a command, or abuse.
Yep.
Because we have to address the toxic, abusive leadership. We know that it's important to be strong with these folks. You know, in basic training, you have to, and you have to, you know, continue to be strong. But there's better ways to do it. You know, if you're trying to shape somebody up in a jiffy, then yeah, yell and scream and call them names and all the hubbub. Okay, but you're on, you know, you're in your duty assignment, you're placed, you know, okay, now we're in a professional setting. And in a professional setting, you know, in civilian land, you don't see people like berating other people and being ugly to them and making them want to kill themselves, quite honestly.
Or let them,
you know, or
die alone.
Yeah, or let them die alone. You know, I mean, we have to hold these people accountable. You know, and I know not every congressperson wants to expand on our, you know, definition here or help us. You've got people that are pro DOD, you know, but the thing is, to me, this is a bipartisan issue.
Oh, yes.
There's a legitimate argument to be raised about that. And so stop telling me, I'm sorry, you know, we're not the majority right now. That's total BS. They could give us support, and they could walk into any of the other offices and say, hey, this is a bipartisan issue. Look, guys, we need to really think about this and address this together. Like, it's a huge issue.
And see, Heather, you have to remember, I learned this from trying to get the Brandon Act passed. Even if we had all of Congress backing us, if the Department of Defense does not want it, they will not okay it.
That's right.
So even if we have Congress behind us, we're not going to have the Department of Defense behind us, and they're going to say and do anything they can to get Congress to go with them instead of what's right.
Because why? Because they think that they're legitimately above the law.
Correct.
And they aren't.
Correct.
But we need our Congress to actually hold them accountable.
We need our Congress men and women to have the guts.
Yeah.
Stand up to DOD and do what's right.
So here's something I did not know, and this is something that Daniel was telling me, my attorney. The last time a court case was accepted by the Supreme Court to address the Ferris issue, the Ferris Doctrine, was back in 2002. It's called the Johnson case. And in this case, the Supreme Court ruled that the Ferris still stands. But there was a dissenting opinion. And that's the most interesting part. And so I don't know if you know what a dissenting opinion, it just means that it's the justices that didn't agree. For the record, they give their dissenting opinion saying that, you know, what the court could have done, X, Y, Z, and the weight of the law and the federal, and basically want it on record. Basically, the way it works is that the Supreme Court has the same weight of law as a federal statute. But the dissenting opinion does not have the same weight of law as a federal statute. Okay, it has the same weight as the majority. But for the record, that's what the dissenting opinion is. It's just for the record. And legal scholars look at it because obviously it argues a counter law to what the majority says. Okay, so in this ruling in the Johnson case, this dissenting opinion shows the alternative ruling, that could have been accepted. So the majority opinion holds the weight of the law and agreed that the incidents of service still stood. But then you have this dissenting opinion in this case made by Justice Scalia, which was joined by another Justice Ginsburg, which is a rare occasion where you have two of the biggest legal justices, coinciding with the biggest conservative justices, on this issue of law. And I believe also Clarence Thomas was agreeing with this decision and opinion as well. So basically, Scalia said that the Ferris makes no sense. That the law allows a claim based on plain reading of the Federal Tort Claim Act, that we should be allowed in the basic reading of the Federal Tort Claim Act, and also says that the Ferris is an error made by the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
And we are allowing it to continue to happen, and we should fix it here in Congress, and we haven't. And that is, if you have these two justices and Clarence Thomas with this dissenting opinion saying, this is why your ruling here in the Johnson case blows. And we got to fix this.
Right.
And what has happened since then? Since 2002? Crickets. Just more families having to navigate and understand this Federal Tort Claim Act and the Ferris Doctrine, and you look back on all of this history, here, and you just go, wow, nobody's learned anything, and everybody's just yawning in the corner, like, when are we going to fix this? Well, I don't know. When are we fixing it? I don't know. When are we fixing it? I don't know.
Do we
It's
really
not
need?
affecting me. When are we going to fix it? Well, the families that it does affect, like ours, we have to join together. We have to come together.
Yep.
And we have to remember that we're not alone in this fight. And if we come together, unified, they have to listen to us. They have to listen to us. They have to hear us. And so that's one of the things that we are doing. Terry and I and the Mothers of the Fallen are trying to do. We are families who have military injustices. And if you know a family that has a military injustice and they don't know about what we're doing, right now we have a petition. It's called Mothers of the Fallen. It's just a petition through change.org, I believe. We'll make sure to add it to the information section of this video on our YouTube, telling you where you can find our petitions. But it's just requesting a congressional hearing for all of us families who have lost a loved one to military injustice, and we would like to be able to speak. We just want change in this failed system. And, you know, in order for there to be change, unfortunately, there has to be, you know, um, frontal hits. There has to be casualties of war. And this is a war that we didn't realize existed, you know, until our service members were hit with this non-combat death epidemic. Terry?
Yep. No, I agree 100%. There's way too many of us. I have learned, and I'm sure you have too, Heather, by talking with other families who have lost loved ones. There are tens of thousands of people in our boat. Um, yes, some that are really, really, that happened a long time ago,
Yes.
and some as recent as, the other day when the sailor, of course, I don't know the circumstances. I haven't seen anything, but he went overboard on one of the ships in the uh, Baltic Sea. They're claiming it was an accident, um, but who knows? I can't
And
say what.
it's interesting that the cameras are never working.
Yes, that's another aspect of all of this. They're never working, never. And there's people like me who have cameras for years that have never broken.
Yeah, you're like, come on, you guys are the best of the best.
Right. And they get the top of the line stuff. So you're telling me the top of the line cameras that the military buys are faulty? And they're faulty only when they're really needed. Otherwise, they work just fine.
Right.
But when my son dies, the cameras on his flight line are not working. When Vanessa Guillen went missing, those cameras weren't working either. And then you've got thousands of cases where families have told me, well, the cameras were out. Really? You're going to buy that?
Yep.
We have to take the military's word for it. We do. Because we
Absolutely.
don't know.
Well, there's nobody to ask.
Well,
once the investigations are over, they shut the door on you being able to rebuttal anything or ask any questions. It's all one-sided.
Yep.
They're judge, jury, and adjudicator. It's all one-sided, and you're on a need-to-know basis. They update you when they feel the need. And even though you bring evidence to the table like I did in Caleb's case, his phone records, and I'm still told by the CID that they're going to close the case regardless. And I kept saying, you're not even going to look at these phone records and see that there's more, people that need to be questioned here in this incident? They
don't want to hear it. They don't want.
And the corporal in Caleb's case, he conveniently didn't know, he didn't have the call log for when he stated that he checked on Caleb on the 17th, which was not possible, 17th of January, because Caleb's phone records clearly show that the 15th of January was the last day Caleb ever responded or made a phone call in any way with his phone. It was early morning of the 15th of January. And they're accepting this statement as truth, even though it states that he can't find the call log. He must have used somebody else's phone. Well, we know that's BS, because as a military mom, you know that your service member They do group texts,
And who,
and that's how they stay in communication because they're lazy. They're not
right.
going to go check on you or communicate with you in person, which is baloney. Like, who doesn't do that? Like, I might not see my administrator. I'm a teacher. I might not see my administrator every single day necessarily, go talk to her, but we're probably going to run into each other. But I'm definitely going to talk to those around me in my pod of teachers that I'm with, and we'll usually check in at the office. We're in communication physically.
And if they had concerns of not seeing Caleb in your case, they could have called the barrack, whoever's on call at the barracks, and asked them to check on him.
That's right.
Why wasn't that done?
I think that's a great point. But the thing is that they've created a culture of shirking responsibility and not checking. And it's a leadership issue from top down.
They want them, like in Caleb's case, they feel that they should not have to check on him because he's an adult.
Mm-hmm.
If something was wrong, Caleb would contact them. That is their mindset, in my opinion. Now, I don't know this to be
I know
fact,
I've heard that opinion.
It's that that's their mentality. And one of the moms that I was helping earlier from the George Washington ship, he had tried to die by suicide twice, and she told us the commanding officer of that ship contacted her and said, I cannot keep my eyes on every sailor on the ship. I don't have time to give your son my time to look after him because of all these other people. Well, okay, you knew he tried to take his life once before, yet you never contacted the mom.
Why
And now
don't you build relationship?
right.
Why don't you build relationship? Like that's like one of the number one things we teachers do when we have a kid that's having a hard time or is a difficult, challenge maybe. We try to build a relationship with them. So if you have, why not take the helm of that? If you notice that you're, underneath you, all these kids are dying of, they're taking their own lives. Why not make it your personal business to get to know them, the ones that are depressed or upset? Why not be like a part of the cool Colonel Club or whatever, whatever your rank is,
Yep.
Cool Colonel Club. But anyway, you know what I mean? Like, why not make it a cool thing to do, to hang out with you? Like, have a pizza party, have, fry your own chicken wings, do something that builds rapport and unifies everybody.
Yep.
And why not? What the hell else are you doing?
Nothing.
What the hell else are you just sitting behind a desk? Eating donuts, letting the folks come in and check in with you every morning and give you updates. Why don't you have your damn boots on the ground?
Oh, but they're too good for that. If they're ranking or officer, they're not going to do that.
Well, if it's good enough for my kid, it's good enough for theirs. Cry me a river.
Right.
If it happens to yours, maybe if it does, like they'll want to join in with us, and they'll be able to hear and understand our cry.
Right. Right.
But until it happens, that frontal hit,
it needs to happen to them in order for anybody to flip and care. It has to happen to them. Otherwise, They're immune. They don't
Mm-hmm.
care. Your loss, not theirs. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they don't look at it as their loss, even though it happened on their watch and under their command.
And they have the audacity to say things like, we're the elite airborne and we treat all of our paratroopers like family. Well, if you did, Colonel Otan, treat everybody like family, then Caleb would still be alive.
Right.
Because one of your guys, you would have been trained to make sure to do these certain things um, in a simple check.
And Heather, think
A
of it
simple
this,
check.
think of it this way. Caleb was turned away how many times from the hospital?
Well, he was turned away. He was turned away for the first time. The first time he sought help, and so
Oh,
yeah, him as a newbie over there.
so my question is, his leadership knew that he was turned away.
Yeah,
Why did they call the hospital or take him there themselves and say, look, there is something wrong with
they
my.
did take him there the second time and made sure when they found out that he had been turned away after he finally came in to and he was wearing night vision goggles and he finally came to formation. They had to go get him. But the other thing is, like, there was another paratrooper who went to check on Caleb that morning, and I'm trying to understand like how that even, like, it's so confangled. There's just missing information. You know how it is. There's missing info. I think it's strategic, honestly.
Convenient.
But here's the deal: they just ruled Caleb's death, natural causes, and then that's it. They closed the door to all the other people that needed to be held accountable. I mean,
Did did they do an MRI on his head, on his head?
yes, I
Do
believe so.
you have the results of that MRI?
Yes, they say that he has swelling in his sinuses.
That's it.
Which, yeah, and but that is, if you look it up, that is a symptom of acute bacterial meningitis. So they should have known that something was off.
Do they, and I don't know, I don't know if they keep photos, actual scan. Do they keep those as part of the record? Because if they do, have you got
I'm looking.
scans that you can see?
Yeah, I need to. I believe that's on one of the FOIAs that we have sent, but I'm going to write that down because I just want to make sure. Um, I know one of the episodes that I want us to do is about all the process of FOIAs and things that you might want to FOIA.
Yeah.
I know that's one of those things that we'll get to, but like I'm still trying to digest and unravel the Ferris Doctrine, the Federal Tort Claims Act, and how it all, like, it's interesting to understand the history and how it all works because it kind of tells you a little bit about how the federal government works and the process and how it all is tangled together.
It's confusing.
It is confusing. And so it's like, I just have to like break it down for myself. And this is just my first like attempt to break it down for everybody. I know I think we'll get better at breaking it down to make it more, that's my goal, is to make the understanding of the Ferris Doctrine, the Sky School Act, all of these, because it's all kind of stems from the Ferris Doctrine. It stems from the Federal Tort Claims Act. It's confangled. So I want us to talk about it more and unravel it some more. what do you think? What do you think about the Federal Torts Claim Act and the Ferris Doctrine and how the whole history of everything? What are your thoughts on all that?
Well, honestly, we just need to do away with,
Do
I
away
mean,
with what?
the Ferris Doctrine. I mean,
Yeah,
why
and we
I have the tort? I don't understand.
why have the what?
Why have it be a tort? Why can't we just sue just based on our um uh evidence?
Mm-hmm.
Because Lord knows we have more evidence that will be correct than the respective military entity.
Yeah, because we've actually done an investigation.
Correct. And we know what our children were going through and what they told us and what they texted us.
Mm-hmm.
After 4 years on 4 years, I still have all of Brandon's texts. We did not get rid of his phone, so we have everything. And murder, there is no statute of limitations.
That's right.
And if we could prove that they were murdered, we can sue anytime.
Oh my goodness! Somebody said, "Please don't abolish the post office." It's a USPS comment.
Oh,
I wasn't abolishing the post office. We love you guys.
well, yeah, that's how we get our mail.
Yeah, how else are we going to get the info that we need? We love the post office.
He was just
Yeah,
using an example.
yeah, it was just an example of a federal employee. You know how the Federal Tort Claim Act. You know, anybody could sue, any citizen could sue based on the Federal Tort Claim Act, because you know the U.S. Post Office is a federal.
Well, they're needed.
You know, yeah.
And Alex, I think Ruddy, thank you for signing the petition.
Yes, thank you so much for signing the petition. Are you looking at the comments as well?
I am.
Okay,
I
good.
put glasses on because I look.
I know.
Goofy.
I know. I'm
No,
telling you, I can't see
beautiful.
a thing.
Me, I'm not so pretty.
Whatever, Terry. You need to stop that. I'm gonna double smack you. Brandon's double smacking his mama right now, saying,
I know, right?
Beautiful lady, you beautiful." I know it's these tapes that get written into our psyche. When we hear people in our life say things like that, then it just gets it's crazy. That's what abuse does. But going back to why it's so important that we really take care of our service members and not put them down, and we don't have toxic leadership that's going to put them down, because it gets written in your psyche. I mean, think about it, guys. When you have a loved one, maybe it's a parent, or maybe it's a spouse that's abusive to you, what does that do to you?
Right.
It's no different. And if you don't have a way for out, when you sign up in the military, you sign up. And I'm thinking about Brandon's case right now. I'm thinking about like whenever he was trying to like go to the special training he was wanting to go to, and the command kept basically losing paperwork or something like that. I don't know. Refresh my memory.
Yeah, he got his contract, broke his collarbone, and his command canceled his contract. And when he was fit for full duty, they made him do all the paperwork over again, even though they told him when they canceled the orders that when he's fit for full duty, he could leave within 2 weeks. And they made him do everything all over, only because they wanted him to stay in that command.
Yeah, and they didn't need to cancel it. Yeah, they intentionally did that to keep him there, so that they could continue to abuse him. It was an act of abuse in itself.
It is. And the Navy, after his SEAL, after he broke his leg in SEALs, they transferred Brandon on a broken leg in two places, and they couldn't have transferred him with a broken collarbone. Really? Doesn't make sense. They would have.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's such a good point.
Yeah. And his collarbone, yeah, they should have, because he could have left that command February 18th of 2018. Brandon would be alive today had they have let him transfer when he was supposed to transfer.
Absolutely, they would. He would.
Thanks to their toxic, abusive climate, Brandon's now dead.
And that fort was
the what?
That duty station. What was the name of the duty station he was at when that happened?
Oh, in Norfolk?
No, yes, Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah, Helicopter Sea Combat Squadron 28.
Okay. On the Norfolk Navy base.
Correct. He was not attached to a ship. He was attached to a squadron, which was an expeditionary command, meaning that they would go out when they were needed. So it was considered sea duty, but if they didn't need him, he didn't deploy. And Brandon never deployed. He was there for 2 years deployed.
So see, Brandon could have been alive still had,
yep.
But going back to Brandon dying for a cause, for a reason, he, to the core of this young man who trained rigorously before entering the Navy because he wanted to be a Navy SEAL, and that was his whole purpose, and he was over the top about it.
Yep.
And
yep.
For him to be pushed through in this way and be mistreated to this degree, talk about crushing your dreams. And when somebody's abusing you, think about what that feels like.
Right.
And then think about the fact that you can't get out of it because, like we were talking about, they won't even let him out because he wants to go to the special training. They keep blocking him.
Right.
In order to systematically abuse him.
Right.
And then, on top of that, the command, even after and during Brandon's death, began to systematically abuse the family.
Correct.
How did they do that? Well, a couple different ways, but one of the ways was to tell the family that he was in the hospital. He was in the ER.
He was alive.
He was alive.
And in the hospital, yep.
And when, in fact, he was still laying on
the flight line or tarmac, yep. Yep. And laid there for, 7.5 hours? It happened at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Can you imagine?
No.
And the young lady that came in to report him still being laid out there, she was just taking out the trash.
Correct.
She's like, you guys still remember that Brandon Caserta's out there on Flightline, right? He's dead.
And
Brandon Caserta.
Yes. And she said that was approximately 9:30 their time, which would have been 6 hours later. And our casualty assistant officers came to our house at 6:30, which was around 9:30 their time. And Patrick immediately got on the phone with Commander Dwayne Whitmer, who's the commander of the command, and Brandon was still out there. And that was been around 7 o'clock our time, which would have been and he was still out there. And they told this sailor to mind her own business and that they know he's still out there.
And then when it came time to give Brandon a memorial, what did they do to you guys?
Well, they don't tell us about it. We're not invited. And the Whitmer requested extra security at the Norfolk base on that day and banned us from entering the base. And as you said, my husband is a 22-year Navy veteran who has every right to be on any base as long as he's in good standing. And of course, he's in good standing. So, and we have an email that states this. So we have the proof, and we got the email from FOIA, of course. And
really,
yeah. And we also have paperwork stating that Brandon was taken by an ambulance in an unknown condition to an unknown facility where he died in the parking lot of that facility. That is also in our paperwork.
And it's an outright lie.
It sure is. Sure is.
So,
and then
I mean, like, as we surf through all of this bamboozling and paperwork that is astonishing, that just screams negligence and the need for accountability
and cover up
and you know, you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, hey, I'm not an idiot. I don't look like an idiot, do I? Like, I'm a normal average person. Like, you look around yourself, you like over your shoulder, you're like, these guys would understand that, right? I mean, like, well, yeah, like the average person can see the inconsistencies in what they're saying and the bamboozling. Families get overwhelmed with what they get pushed through by the military. They just want to shut the dang door, and they want everybody to go away. And that is what the military is hoping for.
Well, and they bank. They bank on families who have never served and who have no idea what the military consists of, not knowing that they are being bamboozled. They can tell anything they want, and the family's going to believe them because they're the military.
That's right.
They're on the up and up. What they don't know is some are not. Some are. Most aren't. And I'm going to say that most are not on the up and up.
But that's why it's so important for us to get out there and start speaking, like we're doing now, about what you need to do in case something like this happens to you. Like, what are the very first steps that you need to do for yourself? You know, I would say number one, contact your congressman. You know, we need to do a whole show, podcast on just this topic, actually. But I mean, there's just so many things to do, and then it just gets into a lot of things depending on what happened to your service member or people that are in the military now, and they need help.
Yeah, I think
we're here for you.
Right. I think what we need to do is have I'm going to call it a checklist from beginning to the end of everything that somebody needs to know, just in case. Again, this is a just in case thing. Like,
right.
Go to your congressman, start your FOIA system, read the reports, ask questions, see if you'll get answers. I mean,
they need to know that the reports are going to take some time.
Yes.
to get to you. And it's not because they can't get to you faster. It's because the military strategically draws things out for their own benefit because of statute of limitations. So
Yes.
you've got to be ready and on the ball. When you get those investigations, you only have X amount of time. And they say 2 years, but that's 2 years from when the investigation was complete. When it gets to you, that's a different story. When the investigation actually gets to you is longer. Yep. For instance, they delivered the investigation to me in Lubbock, Texas. The command did. And so, but all this time had gone by.
And
so
me?
I didn't have as much.
I had to FOIA my investigations. It took over a year for us to get because they have to redact everything. You're lucky yours was delivered to you. Mine was mailed.
Uh-huh. Well, and they did that strategically because they didn't want to have a dang thing to do with you.
You're darn right. They won't meet with us. We did not get to meet anybody from Brandon's command. We requested it. They were busy or they didn't acknowledge it. I mean, we got nothing from Brandon's command. Absolutely nothing. A signed freaking helmet that he threw off before he jumped. That's it. That's all we got.
And they signed it like you wanted them to sign it.
Yep. It like a card. Yep. Everybody signed it.
Supposedly. His cranial.
That's
his cranial.
That he threw off before he jumped, and there's scratches and everything on it. I mean, talk about insensitive.
I think that's so disrespectful.
Yeah. We think so too.
And I think they did that on purpose to be disrespectful.
Of course they did.
Probably the people that were signing it might not have been that way necessarily. Right. But the people that were in charge of the signing of it did it for a very specific reason.
Yep. And we can't read half the names because it's done in a Sharpie that wasn't brand new. So that you know how the tip gets.
So it's just like, hey, go get a Sharpie. We don't really care.
Yep.
How disgusting. Can you imagine doing that to somebody that just died?
No.
You just saw a witness dying, like doing that. Can you imagine?
And everybody.
I hope that image haunts every single person that was on that flight line for the rest of their life. And I hope that more people come forward. And if you were a part of that incident, you need to come forward and you need to speak to this mom. And you can get a hold of her through the Brandon Act. Just look up the Brandon Act or the Brandon Concerta Foundation, and you can get a hold of her through Facebook, through pretty much any of the social media platforms. You can get a hold of her.
Yeah,
the Brandon Act or the Brandon Concerta Foundation.
Yeah.
For that matter, you can get a hold of me, Heather Baker, by going to Heather Hedge Baker on Facebook. That's one way to get in touch with me. I'm also on Instagram as Hedge76, HEDGE 76. And if you know anything about the death of my son and you'd like to come forward, I would love to hear from you. Terry, ready to take it out?
Yeah, I mean,
we got next week. So next week we'll be talking probably more about what we just talked about. I'd kind of like to talk about the Stiesel Act.
Okay. I'll refresh my memory on that.
Yeah. There's a lot to know because it kind of spiderwebs from the Ferris Doctrine. It's kind of an amendment from the Ferris Doctrine for medical malpractice in the military. And it's affecting a lot of us families right now. Unfortunately, we can't bring justice for the families that have died to, like in Brandon's case, toxic abusive leadership, and hold these people accountable for what they've said and how they've abused people.
Right.
Right now, we can't do that, but I'm hoping that one day we can. And we really want you guys to sign our petition. And like I said, I'll throw that in the um, comments or under the
description of the video.
description of the video. And we also have a bill that we are supporting called the Hall of Justice, and that link will be there as well. It just calls for an independent agency that would be above all of these different entities, these governmental entities, even into the civilian world. We have need for corrupt judges and district attorneys' offices to be held accountable. And so we're supporting this bill called the Hall of Justice, written by investigator Manuel Gomez from New York. We hope that you'll check it out. And we thank all of you guys so much for joining us.
Thank
we'll
you.
be posting our podcast here, Military Mom Talk, on Locked and Loaded Diaries platform, along with the Brandon Caserta Foundation platform, along with PV2 Caleb Smither. If you look us up on YouTube, you'll find us. And we hope that you'll like our channels and subscribe. The more you subscribe, more that you like our videos, the more the message gets out there. It's just how it works. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We will be back next week to talk more about these military injustices that continue to plague the culture of our military in general. And as moms, we love the military. We love our service members, and we just want you all to know and remember that we've got your back, or as they say, your six. We got your six, and if you need us, you can find us on the platforms that we were mentioning before. And we love you guys so much. God bless America.
Bless America.
And liberty and justice for all. We love you guys so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless you. Bye.
Bye.